Remember this thing that we troubleshooted last week? And I was like, we're gonna make a video about old stuff, new games and old games and stuff. We're finally gonna do it today. NZXT's build is a quick and easy way to get a new gaming computer, and right now they are proud to announce expansion and availability to Australia, the Netherlands, France, and Italy. Build a gaming PC on your budget using the built-in configurator and see exactly how your favorite games will perform. And all builds are backed by the BLD Peace of Mind warranty. To get started building your next gaming PC, visit the BLD link in the description below. So this right here is our 10-year-old setup, and then a newer graphics card on there. So what we're trying to mimic here is a logical type of system that someone might have and then tries to do like maybe a modest graphics card upgrade to get a better system or better gaming experience, but they can't upgrade their entire platform. So this is an FX 970A SLI Crate Edition MSI motherboard, not a high-end board at all. In fact, the VRMs on here and the Northbridge was getting so hot, I actually had to put this fan on there because I remember how much people complained about how hot the Northbridge and stuff got on this. So the heatsink VRMs, the VRM heatsink, yeah, it's almost room temp now. And the Northbridge heatsink were getting so hot that you actually couldn't really touch them, and that was just sitting idle at the desktop. So they're nice and cool now. We got our system temp running. By system temp, I mean motherboard stuff components running about 28C now. Our CPU though, this is an FX 6100, the very first edition, very first processor family that launched for the FX series, which lasted 3 or 4 years. Let's just say it says 2011 on the CPU. It is definitely a 2011 platform. 16 gigabytes of Ballistix DDR3. So we got four 4 gigabyte match sticks. Quite a bit faster actually than what was out when DDR3 initially launched. I think it might be running at 1333 right now. I'm not running it any faster than that because I do believe the timings on this memory are gonna be a little too tight if I try and run XMP speeds on this RAM on FX. Now you have like DOCP for AMD and you have XMP or Extreme Memory Profile, which you have for Intel. This predates any of that sort of stuff really being a thing. We are running a new Wraith cooler on there that would come with the Ryzen CPU. So we've got our heat pipes and a bigger heat sink and a better fan than the box coolers that came with FX back then. Pretty bad. And that's if they even got one. Remember the ones that came in like a metal tin can? I had that, the 8120 and the 8350 that I had came in like a metal can that had a janky cooler in there. The GPU that's in here, that's where I was trying to figure out where should we land. I would never in a million years recommend that anyone with this particular CPU and memory and motherboard configuration consider any sort of like high-end 20 series, 30 series for damn sure are not compatible with this in terms of bottlenecking, because we want to try and optimize getting as much GPU performance as we can without overloading our CPU. Remember, the higher the frame rate capability of the graphics card, the more load we're putting on the CPU. So what we're targeting here is newer titles. Every title we have in here right now, they're gonna range from older to somewhat newer, but all of them are much newer than this particular platform. It's particularly the CPU. So we're gonna be targeting 1080p, 60 FPS, high settings. And the reason why we want high settings is because the more load we can put on the GPU, the lower the FPS, which means less load on the CPU, but better effects, better post-processing, just better appearance of our game. You might wanna go, well, I don't want to overload the system, so I'm going to go lower settings. Well, all that does is actually put more stress on the CPU because the GPU can render more frames per second, which means higher load on the CPU. So in terms of the games we're going to kind of test today, we're going to play some Counter-Strike Global Offensive. That title's not really older than this setup, really. But that's a title that stutters and pauses and any sort of like glitching would definitely affect your gameplay. Dirt Rally 2.0, very new title. Very demanding in terms of CPU and such, and we're gonna see how that plays on this older setup. Doom Eternal, it's just a title people love. And then when it comes to Rocket League, you guys know about Rocket League. Now the graphics card that's on here, it's a GTX 1660, non-Super, non-TI, just regular 1660. And that's where it became difficult to go, okay, what's a card people might realistically be able to get their hands on today without having to pay 2 children and a deed to a house? Fun fact, I've actually, this last weekend, I was able to find numerous, and by numerous, I mean a lot, like 10 or more, local RTX 3070s for sale for $499, which is MSRP. So things are improving, which means a 1660 should significantly be less than that. Now, obviously, it's going to depend on where you live and stuff, but things are changing. Things are finally starting to become normal. $500 MSRP RTX 3070. I found 10 of them this weekend. I actually counted because I was shopping and I found them. So lightly used cards, not brand new, but still, that just shows you that things are happening here. So the 1660 is closer equivalent to like a 1070 card. Remember that came out with 20 series because 16 was closer to 20 than 10. So it was like half plus one kind of a thing because NVIDIA. But again, it's got new memory, fast memory, obviously much faster CUDA cores in there. It doesn't have RTX cores or RT cores or any of that sort of stuff. But if you consider where a 1070 lands in terms of what was new when this system came out, I had a 580. So let that kind of show you how many generations of graphics card we've had. 500, 600, 700, 900, 10, and 20, which is technically this is in the 20 series family. So 7 generations of card came out since this platform that we're on was a thing. So what should we start with? Counter-Strike Go? Sure, let's just go ahead and start with the fan favorite. Remember, this video is not about, I'm not advocating for this. I'm truly investigating what is the user experience like for somebody that's still running this old. Because here's the thing, so much of our content is driven by the audience. We get emails all the time, we get messages, people asking, do this, do that, or how do you feel about this, or Jay, is this worth it? And when I start to notice a trend, right? Anytime I notice a trend of people asking the same thing, a bunch, different people asking it, I'll then go, you know what, we should do a video about this. Like 1 or 2 inquiries isn't enough, but if we get dozens of people asking, and over the last weeks, and especially during this shortage, people have been asking me, is FX really that bad? Should I just build an FX system? Well, if wait times are not your thing, right off the bat, I'm gonna say during installs, remember the old tell it to install and go make yourself dinner? That's back. That's a sick black screen there, bro. All right, so our initial setup here, everything defaulted itself basically to high. Texture streaming is disabled. Shader detail very high. Like I said, we want to go high because we want to put as much load on the GPU, not the CPU. 2x MSAA, it was set to 8. We went to 2x. And here's the funny thing too, is we can see the FPS in the corner, which is getting about 120 FPS in the menu right now. We're not going to be able to hook MSI Afterburner to CSGO because of anti-cheat. The same reason why you can't hook to it when you try and do live streaming with it and capturing that window. But we do have it open underneath so we can see what the CPU is doing. Because I have a feeling we're going to see some pretty pegged CPU performance here. So I'm just going to go in again to a random Dust 2 casual, piss off some people because I'm bad. I wasn't always bad. I mean, I just became bad because I stopped playing and I got older and my reflexes suck and my eyesight's going a little bit, my hair is a little more gray. I don't have arthritis though, I got that going for me.
I feel like all of us are like marked for arthritis later in the future just because of computers.
And lifting.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's 130, then it drops down to like 70. I'm gonna die. Oh, that was very jittery when I turned the corner. Oh, we both have deagles over here. Oh. I wanna see the replay. Why do I feel like there was some lag there? Nope, he just got lucky.
Them AK first shots.
Look at that though, we're down into 60s. Oh, we hit 50s for a second there. What if it goes yellow? Dude, it's like definitely all over the place. And here's the thing, anytime the FPS dips suddenly, that's because of the CPU bottleneck for a moment. I'll cover Short A.
Short A.
Short A. So this OS, what I mean by clean OS, it's all updates are done. Nothing's up to update. All drivers are up to date. All optional install upgrades are done. The OneDrive is disabled. Like it's a pretty clean OS where there's nothing running in the background that could cause the CPU to have a serious problem here. And that's the thing. Anything that could suddenly start up would be a problem. Wow, I still have my reflex there.
CS gods have decided to bless you again this day.
Oh, there's 3 of them.
Just kidding. Bless you with
They weren't there the first time I inspected that area. That jump! I jumped into a stream of bullets.
I love panic jumps.
Okay, I mean, the FPS really did smooth out. It's like 150 now. This is super playable. Dude, the fan's never even turned on.
Oh, jeez.
The graphics card's not even hot. Like, the graphics card's not even, like, warm to the touch. I see you. How did I not hit him right there? Oh, he saw me too. All right, well, hey, CSGO, totally doable. So we were getting about 100 FPS consistent with this setup. The graphics card never even turned on. If I look at MSI Afterburner, the graphics card, the hottest it got was 63. Look at that temp. I mean, it sort of climbed to like 61, 62. It never even turned. I think like 65 is where the fans are actually supposed to turn on with this card. So these are those stutters we were seeing right there. And then it stopped. See that? This is in between the match, and then that was the next match. So it's funny, something was happening, and those extreme dips we were seeing definitely coincided with something pegging the CPU 100%. And then these are those 2 matches we played. Nothing pegged, which is why we were super smooth, and then it pegged obviously leaving the game. Now we're gonna go from an old shooter to a new, more intense shooter like Doom Eternal. Doom is also very efficiently written. It's written where it can run on lower end hardware without seeming completely terrible because of the fact that it uses, I believe, the Vulkan API. Everything's just extremely efficient when it comes to coding and overhead. Vulkan is like an amazing API. I love Vulkan. It has made stuff like this be able to still exist, if you want to know the truth. Okay, so let's go ahead and go in here to our settings. We go to video. It's by 1200 by, no. And overall quality is set to low. Let's start with Ultra, because I think it can handle it, if you want to know the truth. One of the things we noticed when we were doing like that little like standalone PC, like an all-in-one, even the menu was kind of like slow and stuttery. So I expect this to be an experience where if we were to put like a cardboard box over this and do a blind taste test, people might not even, I feel like people would guess that this is like first generation, like maybe like a 1200 or 1400 Ryzen. I don't think people would guess it's a 6100, if you want to know the truth. Phil, I was not expecting this level of gameplay in terms of smoothness. If you want to know the truth.
Yeah, for a 60 FPS target, that is plenty of overhead.
Dude, we're getting 100 FPS. Yeah. Hate you. I hate your face. Yeah, I finally beat that level after how many times?
When you actually get to a save game point, though, don't quit right now.
I know. 100 FPS minimum during all of that. On a 6100 with a 1660 and 1080p on ultra settings. Give me that gas can. Dude, I'm trying to make this like lag and stutter by doing all this jumping around and stuff. But it's not doing it. It's like 106, 119, 122. This is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, be nice to me. I've not played Rocket League in a long time. But this is one of those titles that I happen to know that FPS and consistency and non-pausing and all that stuff obviously really matters. Everything's on high, everything's on, okay, cool. So I'm just kind of curious, and I haven't done any placements or anything on this, but let's just go into training for the moment. Setup. We figured the best way to see whether or not this is gimping me in any way is to 1v1 with Nick. Now to be fair, Nick has been playing the game again. I have not played probably in like 4 months, maybe more. So my muscle memory and stuff is a little bit delayed. Like it's there, but it's wrong half the time, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, we got it! Oh, wait.
Oh!
Save!
Oh no!
Oh!
Oh!
Slow it up.
No boost. Just letting him have it. Oh god.
Nice.
That's called a scooper! I scooped it!
Oh!
Oh, stuff. No, 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 no!
Wait!
Yeah! I was so convinced I was going in. I put the controller down. Oh, stuff.
Ooh, stuck that pass.
Yeah, I did. 2-2 with 19 seconds.
Something trash too, finally.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Stuff.
You got
I could do this. Kickoff win. Aw.
Oh,
Damn!
no. We keep it up.
Aw. Winner butts. Hey, I'll take a 2-3 loss because you haven't played in months and he's been playing, so you know, what does that say? Okay, Phil, 6100 doable on Rocket League?
I didn't see it go below 120.
And it did not ever hiccup or stutter on me. All right, Rocket League, totally doable. All right, the last title here is going to be Dirt Rally, only because I know that it's extremely CPU intensive and it's graphically intensive too. The 1660 will have no trouble running this. I'm just curious as to how the 6100 is going to do. I've got to tell you, so far I'm pleasantly surprised. I'll get people that will respond to whether or not FX is good or bad, and they're like, I'm still running a 6300 and it's perfectly fine. And I think to myself, like, wow, that must be rough. But so far, depending on what you play, maybe it's not rough. GPU's at 32%, but obviously we're not in the game. This is the free roam Dirtfish. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I can then just sort of like screw around and not worry about breaking the car and whatnot. CPU's at 50%, 52%. That is actually, whoa, I forgot how much this car leans. Wow, 80 FPS. What is the settings? Are we still set to whatever the low settings were because of that other thing? Nope, 1920, advanced graphics, we're set to high. Let's go to ultra, screw it. Our target 60. 75 FPS, totally unexpected. Can I drift it into the... I had it, but then I didn't believe that it was gonna make the turn. Let's try it again. A little wide. I should have kept the steering wheel turned. I counter steer back too fast. Dude, 70 FPS on a 6100? 40% CPU usage right now. So clearly in free roam, it's able to handle it. So let's go ahead and try one of the stages. I was currently in the middle of the historic stuff. Yeah, so once you go into a stage, it's clearly a different story. So it's 34 FPS. So let's go back to high. Going from ultra to high was double the frame rate. 70 FPS. Holy cow. Like, I'm focusing on the driving, not the computer like feeling like it's gimping me in some way. Dude, yeah, you could play Dirt 2 or Dirt 2.0 all day long with this setup. Holy cow. This just goes to show, as long as you have, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, as long as you have enough CPU available for the GPU to do its thing, it could be a potato. There is no lower CPU in the FX lineup other than the 4100. There was 4100, 6100, 8100, right? Actually, it wasn't even 8100, it was 8120. There's no lower CPU than the 4100. This is about as bottom as it gets. So when people ask me, Jay, I have an opportunity. If you say, Jay, I have an opportunity to buy a really cheap FX CPU setup, as long as you know it works, and you know it hasn't been hammered and all the cores work, all the memory channels are there, because that's the thing, like some of this, like you could have memory channel dropouts on certain motherboards and stuff, because the memory is controlled on the motherboard on this setup, not the CPU. So as long as it's tested and known working, all the PCIe lanes work, all the SATA ports, everything works on it. Before I would tell people, God, no, never get an FX system, they're terrible. They're terrible in relative performance to what we see with Ryzen now and how far AMD's come with Ryzen. But based on what I've experienced today on just a random selection of titles, you could absolutely play games on this. Maybe you're not gonna play New World. Maybe you're not gonna play World of Warcraft with all the particles turned on and texture settings and stuff. You're not gonna play open world games that have huge worlds that have to render at super high FPS. But if those aren't the kind of games you're trying to play, you just want to go in and play around in Rocket League, you want to play CSGO, you want to go and enjoy the original Half-Life series, maybe go back to the Halo Master Collection, the Master Chief Collection. There are all these titles that are great that you've never had a chance to play because you just now got old enough to build this, you don't have a lot of money, but you want to experience these great titles that you've heard about. You can absolutely do it on a setup like this. Could probably have even done it on a lower CPU. We probably could have done a 1650 in here and had a great experience still. We were getting, I think, just about everything you would have paid for the 1660 working in this setup. Which means if you could get, here's the thing. I have seen this exact type of motherboard, like this tiered motherboard would be an ASRock or something like that. The ASRock Extreme was really popular back in FX. And like 6100s or even 6300s, because there is, remember, the 6300 series was faster. Not much, but faster. I've seen this combo go for like $100. So if you had $100 that you could build on this, find yourself some DDR3 RAM and throw a a graphics card in there that you spend a couple $100 on. We're talking like you could actually build a $400, $350 system here and play these games. It's nice to see old hardware like this still has some life in it. I've always kept this stuff around because I knew that as it gets older, it becomes more interesting to talk about. Because this is the situation I think so many people are living in terms of like, Ryzen's awesome, but even the cheapest one is too outside my price range. Because unfortunately, the more competitive AMD got with Intel, the price went up with it. So with that said, if you guys are running an FX system down there, do me a favor, comment down below with what titles you play, what kind of FPS you're getting, and what GPU you have it paired with. I think it'd be really interesting to see how well it goes for people. The installs of titles, installs of updates and software, it can feel a little rough. We're used to like point-click instant opening on everything we do, and we are still running SSDs on this. So that'd be my major recommendation. If you're gonna run an old platform like this, don't pair it with a spinner drive because that's just gonna automatically make life hell when it comes to installing stuff. Get a cheap SSD that's big enough to put 1 or 2 titles on at a time and then rotate what games you install on there. That way you can take as much of the bottleneck off of the drive as possible and put it onto the CPU or the graphics card. Absolutely perfectly playable. This is probably the kind of setup my daughter should have got, but you know, when in Jay's room. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Sound off down below with the asset I had. If you're running an FX system, what GPU are you pairing it with, which CPU, and what's the FPS like in the titles that you play. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. And no, you can't have it. This is my only working FX setup.